Is the Moto G8 a bargain or is it simply overhyped? Stick around till the end of this video to find out just that. I'm Shah and this is Tech Moments. By the way, before I begin, it would really help if you could subscribe, comment, like and share this video. Thank you. So to begin, you'll notice that this device has 4 GB of RAM along with 64 GB storage, but only 50 GB of that is available to use straight away. Also, the color I've gone for is the pearl white option. Now, the phone itself. To be honest, I'm already impressed with something this device has on board, but I'll get to that once I've completed the rest of the unboxing. Inside the box, you get some conventional paperwork, the SIM ejector tool and a fast charger. This for me is very cool to have, especially in this price category. Yes, it's only 10 watts, but it should still get this phone charged quicker than other more popular smartphones, if you know what I mean. The Moto G8 is not the slimmest phone I've held, but I'm liking the approximate 188 g weight it has, as it feels quite light in my hands. Surprisingly, I guess this is thanks to its plastic housing. The weight and feel of a device is often fundamental when choosing which smartphones to buy, but how does the Moto G8 do in this department? Well, it will be fair to say that it's comfortable enough. As you can probably tell, I'm not too excited by this. However, what did excite me about this phone was its price. This smartphone is currently well under the $250 mark. I purchased it for around £179, which is, considering the specs it has, good value for money, at least on paper. So after the unboxing, I used this phone briefly in order to note my findings. I'm going to start with perhaps the standout, not so good features about this phone. So the display. Firstly, it's only 720p with 268 pixels per inch, and it's on a massive 6.4 inch panel. This I reckon highlights the lower screen quality even more so than perhaps smaller competitors. However, this does, I guess, allow the price to be as low as it is on the Moto G8. Having said that though, I would have liked to still see a 1080p display on the G8, as the screen is something which I think should not be compensated on a smartphone. But don't get me wrong, it's not a bad display for most conventional tasks, but this is definitely an area where the price of the phone is reflected quite a bit. Which brings me to the design and build quality. The Moto G8 does not do great either in these departments, as it has a plastic back which does not feel or look so great even for a budget phone. The bezels on this device, particularly at the bottom of the screen, can be somewhat off-putting. I guess the only consolation with this device when it comes to the screen is the size of the punch hole front camera, which surprisingly is similar in size as much dearer devices. I wouldn't really expect this phone to have curved edges or anything like that, but I would not be surprised if some people got fed up after a while viewing media on this phone when using it on a regular basis. So hardware aside, how does the Moto G8 perform? Well, the Snapdragon 665 processor inside is actually the type of CPU you'd expect on a budget phone like this. However, it really can at times re-emphasize just how much of a budget phone this G8 from Motorola is. So everyday tasks that do not contain much detail within them are fine, but as soon as you want to reopen an application with a bit more substance, the chip starts to show its true colors. Having said this though, I would not be too worried, as this is mostly noticeable when multitasking emphatically like I was, because I wanted to test the phone fairly extensively. What I'm basically getting at is, if you want a budget phone which does the things you need it to most of the time, the G8 can still satisfy you, bringing me onto the quite impressive things you get for the price of this phone. Up first is the cameras. Yes, there's a triple camera setup here on the Moto G8. The rear main sensor is a 16 megapixel with a f1.7 aperture, an 8 megapixel ultra wide with a f2.2 aperture, and to round up the three lenses, there's a 2 megapixel macro lens, which to be honest is a surprise itself that Motorola has even included, as this type of sensor is not seen that often on such a low priced phone. Now, if you take a photo with this phone in good lighting, the pictures come out clear and vibrant due to the strong color reproduction. Also, there is not much noticeable blur in the shots either, which of course remains to be the case up to only the point where you begin to crop in via digital zooming. Now, as you watch me sort of play around with the ultra wide and the main sensor on this phone, I want to make a side note regarding that macro lens. I have to say it will most likely be wiser for you to use the main rear camera to take close-up shots rather than using the macro mode itself, as it just does not have enough resolution to pull off good shots from a very close range. The front-facing camera housed in that punch hole on the display is an 8 megapixel sensor, which doesn't take standout selfies. Therefore, again, I think it will be wiser to adopt the two main rear sensors for most of your photos. As for the recording capability, the Moto G8 consists of a 1080p at both 30 and 60 frames per second capability. Also, 4K at 30 frames per second is available here on this budget phone. Now, moving on to perhaps my biggest grab for this phone from a hardware perspective, and that is the battery and fast charger, which I spoke about earlier. And to be honest, the fact that it even has a fast charger, this phone, is great, it's cool, and it's really nice to see that a company like Motorola is doing this straight out of the box. The great news is that the average lasting time with the 4000 mAh battery on board on the G8 is comfortably getting over the 18-hour mark, putting it in a similar range found on the Redmi Note 8T. Now, while that phone has NFC and this device doesn't, I wanted to mention a few features this phone does have straight out the box, which still makes it quite compelling at the price range it is, starting with the rear mounted fingerprint scanner. Now, I must say this is not exclusive to this phone. Using a rear mounted fingerprint scanner is very difficult, of course, whilst the phone is laying down. However, once you do get it going, this phone is very responsive with its fingerprint scanner, yet it can be quite laggy as well. And I'm showing this, here and now on the screen, you can see, and it is annoying, but when it does work, it's quite quick. The animations are quite quick. And then you've got the shake approach, which is obviously an Android thing. It's still running on the G8, and it's nice to see. And then you've got little attention to detail, like I'm showing here, like a rugged touch where the lock button is. And I feel like Motorola have really thought about the end buyer with this phone, which is quite impressive for a budget tier device that we have in the Motorola G8. Motorola even throwing a pre-installed silicone clear case straight out of the box once again, and this is just again thinking about the buyer by Motorola here. So great points again from them with this device. I wanted to mention before I conclude the video that for me the G8 is definitely a contender for one of the best phones you can get under the $250 mark. It may miss out on things which come across as must-haves, but when you look at the things that are good on this phone, you may start to realize that those are actually the things you need and you use most on a smartphone. Those are, of course, a good long-lasting battery, some useful camera lenses for photo taking, and the thing that maybe counts the most, a very compelling low price. That's my take on this phone, but I want to know yours in the comments below. Also, hit that subscribe button on the bottom right of your screen so you know when I make more content like this. And finally, I would really appreciate it if you give this video a like or even dislike depending on what you think it deserves. That's it from me, and that's it from this video. Hopefully, I'll see you guys in the next tech moment.